Tested.
Hey guys. So yes, this meeting is being recorded, so everyone on their best behavior from here on out, please. My name is Mr. Committee. We know we are watching you. So I just want to say hello to everybody and to let you know that the weather here in St. Paul, Minnesota is just lovely today. It's a cloudy 58 degrees Fahrenheit. So for those of you who don't know, this is the reason why we have a virtual meeting today. Amerigo and I are actually here in St. Paul helping ACEC Minnesota with their version of Roads and Streets. So they just kicked it back off after a couple of years and asked for some help, and here we are. So we're on site for the next couple of days, welcoming 1,300 Minnesota engineers, and yeah, we're really excited to be here. So thank you for your patience with us. Normally we would be at the office today, but we are doing some heavy lifting here in lovely Minnesota. So Mr. Froberg and Mr. Christensen, our total participation today for those who registered is 27. We are currently at 23. So gentlemen, whenever you would like to begin, please do.
All right. Thank you, Justin. And I picked up my cold throat is killing me right now. So I'm not going to be saying a whole, but I thank you. Everyone for attending the City of Phoenix CIP extravaganza, we call it. We have Eric Froberg today. He is the engineer for City of Phoenix. Started in January 2019, so it's been a couple of years. It's bye. He came from New Mexico. He lived in Mexico. Prior to that, he was recognized as top 20 under 40. And Eric, he got a degree from University of Arizona. But Eric, if you want to expand on that a little bit, say a little bit more, but I'm giving out on my voice, so.
All right, well, good morning, everyone. And Justin and Amerigo, I'm a little bit jealous. What Chuck didn't mention is that I was actually born in Minnesota, so you are back in my homeland, so treat them right. I get back there about every couple years because I still have family there, so Minnesota is a pretty cool place. So with that, we'll get started here. So, and hopefully my audio, Chuck, your audio was pretty garbled up. So hopefully mine is a little more clear, but here, let me share my screen here. All right, so since I can't see anybody because everybody has their video off. Can somebody just let me know if you can see the presentation?
Looks good.
Okay.
And
all right, good.
Yeah.
Good deal. All right, well, welcome everybody to the CIP extravaganza. I changed it up a little bit. Usually, right, we just come in and I'm just all about like, okay, let's just get right to the project leads and all that kind of stuff, right? Let's talk about the CIP and all that. Well, because I get kind of bored of talking about that because I talk about it with a lot of different people. We changed it up a little bit, and we're gonna try something different this year. And then you can provide some feedback later on whether you liked it more or less type of a thing, and then we can make some adjustments. So here's see if we can get this to go forward. All right, so here's the agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about just being successful on SOQs and the submittals and some of the things that I'm hearing. We'll give you an update on the city supplements to MAG, which we are very near finishing and putting out a new version. We'll talk a little about some prompt pay improvements, and we'll talk about our contract templates. And if we have time at the end, of course, we will talk about CIP projects. I can't leave you guys hanging with that. We'll give you some ideas of some leads and those types of things for the coming year out of the CIP. But let's talk first a little about successful SOQ proposals. So I hear this from almost every consultant. You know, you City of Phoenix, you always pick the same firms. And I hear that from, I say almost every consultant, because the firms that we always pick, of course, they're not complaining, right? So But what I thought was odd is then I started hearing this from some city departments. Well, we always pick the same firms. And so now that I hear it from both sides, right? And I will say I'm hearing it a little bit more from the consultants than I do from the city departments. But when I start hearing it from the city departments, I think, all right, well, maybe there's some insight or some ideas that I can give to both city staff, right, to not always pick the same people, though the selection of engineers and architects, and that's what we'll be talking about specifically today, right, it is largely dependent, almost entirely dependent on what the submittals that they get from you all, right, when you submit on a project. So one thing that, and some of you may have heard this before, right, that I've worked with in the past or whatever. Well, to me, only first place matters, right? I mean, unless we're doing a multi-select, right, but let's just assume we're talking about a project, right? So only first place usually matters. There were times when I was proposing on a project, I would tell my staff, look, we're going to get, with this understanding and approach, we're going to get first place or we're going to get last place. I mean, either they're going to love the creativity and they're going to love the ideas and they're going to pick us because it was just such a unique idea and a clever way to do the project, or they're going to think we were crazy and kind of off our rockers and we were way too, way too out of control.
Us sound people are a little fucked up with that stuff.
So if we can have everybody mute a little bit, I don't know who that is, but usually only first place matters, right? So because second place,
as a manager, and I was like sitting there.
Looks like maybe
got down before you have a fucking heart attack.
All right, there we go. So what I would tell them is second place, usually, right? Second place pays exactly the same as last place. So I wasn't shooting for second or third place, right? It was, I'm going for it all, or, it's going to be all or nothing. So what I kind of mean in that doesn't mean come with the craziest ideas that you can come up with, because sometimes that backfires where they're like, yeah, that's just too much. But keep in mind when you're putting something together, right, you want to kind of strike a balance between your capabilities, but also the creativity that you have and the being able to help us be successful on whatever that project is, whether it's a design project or a study and those types of things. So I really want to encourage everyone to not just send us kind of the same old, well, hey, this was what we did the last time we submitted on a project, unless it was a successful project, right? Like unless that proposal was a successful one. But odds are, right, and I was always pretty careful on, if I had a proposal from a previous project, let's say it's a roadway project, transportation project, and another similar project is coming out, well, unless I'm copy and pasting and modifying a winning proposal from the last time, why am I using that again, right? That wasn't successful the last time. So be a little bit creative. We can tell, and as you can imagine, right, we can tell when there is the firms that put a lot of effort into proposals and then the ones that, took something off the shelf and changed the title. And sometimes it's pretty obvious that they don't even run a find and replace, right? And it used to say Southern Boulevard and it's supposed to be for Rozier Road or something, right? So, but again, on that side too, I do understand that it does take time and effort and money to put these things together, right? But obviously winning kind of helps all of those ills, right? So, and I have talked with some of our city departments too, of kind of look past what is written there as much as we can. Now there are rules, procurement rules about what we can and cannot know outside of what you've written, right? Because we evaluate you primarily, and that is without, and when I say primarily, I mean almost 100% on what you have written down. Now, of course, we all have our kind of unintended and kind of the biases that we bring with us from working, good or bad biases that we have from working with you, but there isn't a way that we are supposed to incorporate that. So, and then the last one here, kind of on the SOQ, honesty matters. I heard this a couple times. where again, this kind of goes back to some of those biases that we have. If we worked with a firm, let's say I'm reading a proposal and I've worked with you on the Rozier Road project, let's say, and you write in your proposal, oh, the Rozier Road was a perfect project, you know, we were on time and under budget and all of those things, but you weren't, right? I'm going to obviously know that that wasn't true, and it's okay, right? We understand when projects get delayed. You would not be surprised to know that many of our projects get delayed for one reason or another. So it's okay to honestly talk about, you know, okay, yeah, we had some delays on this project. They were because X, Y, and Z, but here's how we solved them, right? So show us how you can help us solve problems that undoubtedly we're going to run into in our project. So I wanted to start out with that a little bit, just because I understand like firsthand what it takes to put project pursuits together, and it is not easy, and I don't want to discredit that, but I want you to use your resources as successfully as you can in a way that can help you be to get a few more of those projects, and then I can stop. I can hear less from the firms that we always pick the same firms, or that we from the city departments that they are always picking the same firm. So again, just a few ideas there to kind of help you on that. So there's the first part. Second part, all right, city supplements to MAG. So I want to thank Keeney, previous city engineer, for doing the last update. But then I also want to kind of shake my finger at Keeney a little bit that it was, the last one was in July of 2015. So it's been a few minutes since we did this. So one thing, and we started looking at it, and I knew that we as the city were providing hey, Greg, can you, there you go. We were doing a lot of design exceptions because something had changed in the detail, and the various departments weren't following, they weren't wanting what was exactly in our supplements anymore. So in 2019, we put a committee together of 25 people, both internal and external, and we started looking at them all and started saying, okay, well, which ones do we want to change? Which ones aren't we using anymore? Are there new ones that, you know, there was a couple where the departments had just started handing out, right, here's how we want you to do it. And they were giving them like a new standard detail or a new detail. And we thought, all right, well, let's go ahead and update these because it's been some time. So lots of virtual meetings, 15 times, couple hours a piece. But then as you can see here from the graph, right, what happened after fall of 2019 is we had this little pandemic thing happen, and it slowed us down, but we're now to the point where we've done all of our revisions. We have a good update that we're ready to put out. I do need to go. I'm going to the City of Phoenix Development Advisory Board, going to the DAB tomorrow and the next day. So we're going to the technical committee tomorrow, and then full DAB on Thursday, I believe. And then after that, we'll be able to release these kind of for everybody's use. But I wanted to go over just a few of the kind of highlights of what we talked about, or what some of the things that you will see that we changed. First, I wanted to give some credit. Obviously, you don't have to read all of those, but want to give some credit to the 25 people or 24 other people that helped us go through this. There were we had a consultant representative. We had a contractor there, right? That was important. So if you have any complaints on the consultant side, please go talk to Carl, as he was your representative. All right, so we have a handful of new ones. So and it looks like a lot, but then when I put this kind of red box around it, these are all related. They're all related to basically trash enclosures, right? Like dumpster enclosures. And when there's a single versus a double and a triple, and what you have to do with grease traps and all of those other things. So in general, if you count those as kind of one topic, you know, we really only added 3 new topics, you know, one about here with the enclosures. There was a handful of exhibits where we had talked, or details where we showed the scenarios about when we were restricting turns, you know, lefts in, and, you know, when it's a right in and when it right out, or when it has a decel lane or whatever. Well, there was one missing. So we added the one where there's left in and right in, but there's no left out with a decel lane. So there we're just kind of cleaning those up a little bit. And then we changed the driveway entrance, or we added a driveway entrance that had a roll curb, because in the field, we weren't doing a good job of having a driveway with a roll curb kind of near a corner. They were starting to look like sidewalk ramps. So we added a detail there. We did delete these handful. They weren't necessary anymore, the departments, and some of them are water related, right? Sewer taps, pipe collars, and those types of things. We also have these 4 in the middle here, and you'll see why we took out some of these curb ramp details. Some of them were just redundant, or they didn't seem to have enough information or enough relevant information to remain in the details. So we ended up taking those out. So a handful of them went away. We did add so the city, the mayor and council, our sustainability department, right, very much pushing green infrastructure and low impact development. The city of Phoenix was part of a regional group that developed or helped to develop a bunch of green infrastructure, LID details. It was us and City of Scottsdale and MAG. There's a whole group of us. Well, then we took those a little bit farther because those were more generally concept, and we tweaked them a little bit for use within like city right of way. And there, so these not quite 10. There was a few of them that we didn't like, but these 8 of them, we made a few modifications specific to the city of Phoenix, but we wanted to have them all in one place. So we've added them to the city supplements. These aren't quite city supplements to MAG because these aren't in the MAG, but it felt like the right place to have these all in one place. So I'd encourage everyone on your projects to incorporate these. It would be helpful for the sustainability here of the city. We are tracking these types of projects. If you have this type of experience, going back to kind of the first couple slides, this would be good stuff to talk about potentially in your proposals, right? Help to separate you. All right, the major ones that we changed here were the sidewalk ramp details. And I had noticed, and for right or wrong, I guess, I have designed hundreds of sidewalk ramps in my time. And I get it, it can be tedious, right? You're chasing hundredths around sidewalk ramps to make sure that the cross slopes and the longitudinal slopes and the lengths and all of those things work. But what we ended up doing was in the field, we were having troubles where design plans were just saying, you know, install sidewalk ramp per city detail P1233, but there was no design information on it, right? It was just graphically shown. So then when we go out there with the contractors, then we were kind of requiring the contractors to field fit all of these things. And that didn't feel fair to me in that they are the contractors, not the designers. So we've changed it. And basically, though, these handful of details here, the only change that we added was that we added a note that basically says that these details are provided for general guidance, that the ramp elevation, slopes, and distances will be provided on your sealed construction document. So when you have sidewalk ramps, I would be expecting to see individual details for each of them where you list out, you know, lengths and slopes and elevations and all of those types of things so that the contractor can just follow along with how you have designed them. So I know it's a change and I know it will require more effort on the designer's side, but my hope is that the extra effort that the design firms put in will actually help us in the field because there's always that it seems as though, you know, I would get change orders more frequently than I needed to, where it was like, well, hey, we put in a sidewalk ramp, or the contractor field fit a sidewalk ramp, but then it didn't quite work out. So we tore it out and he had to do it again. And you know, the contractor's response is, well, I didn't have any design guidance. And I was like, well, nope, that's true. So this is an attempt to change that. So hopefully you guys can help me out with that. And I get it takes more work and it is somewhat painful sometimes to make the slopes all work, but you know, hey, you guys are the designers. So let's go ahead and make sure that we're designing the projects, not just the longitudinal slopes of the roadway, but let's make sure the ADA facilities work as well. Before I move on from the COP supplements, here's a handful of other things that these are kind of individual things that we worked on. We upgraded the bus shelter details about where shelters should be located, some information about the VPC trench loading. We updated most of those charts. There was, I think, 5 of them, and 4 out of the 5 for the materials lab needed a little bit of work on those. And then we had some updates on the water service connections and fire hydrants and those types of things. So you'll see those when they come out. They're all identified in the COP standard details. We list them up front, which ones are new, which ones are updated, which ones are deleted. So you'll be able to see those here shortly. If all goes well with the DAB committee in the next couple of days, hopefully we can get those out in June here pretty quick, or maybe we just make it, at fiscal year and make it starting July 1. All right, some updates on prompt pay. I do want to thank you, the whole consultant community. You do not, and complain is a wrong word. You do not voice concerns as often as the contractors do. And I understand right? Partly it's contractors' pay apps are usually quite a bit larger than the consultants. But at the end of the day, right, we are working. The city is not good at prompt pay right now. We don't do a good job of adhering to the 30 or the 21 days. Some of the things that AGC brought up are actually good things, and they do involve the engineers and architects. So it's worth bringing up here is that when we have a CA&I firm, we should be trusting that those CA&I firms are doing the nuts and bolts kind of very detailed review, and that subsequent to that review, there shouldn't be a lot of re-review from city staff, right? Whether it's the city PM or team leads, deputies, that kind of stuff. So I'm working internally to try to speed that up because, of course, right, running a business, as I was partially doing for quite some time, right, cash flow matters. And when we are holding on to your invoices for what are usually small things, right, I understand the challenges that presents to contractors and consultants. So there may be some additional guidance coming out for CA&I firms and then mostly internal. The other real part that we're having some trouble with is just our internal processing, right? There's just a lot of touch points. And then, it starts in the engineering side, right, with the PM, but then it goes to the budget and research folks, and then it goes to the fiscal folks, and then it goes to accounts payable. There's just a lot of steps. So we're going to try to streamline that a little bit to try to get people paid a little more. But I did want to thank you all for being more forgiving on the prompt pay with the consultants. I think last couple of things here before we get into the stuff you've all been waiting for. You've all been very patient. Thank you for listening to this part. Is we have some revised contract templates. So far, they are all construction related. We haven't got into the professional services one. We have finished the CMAR contract. The real kind of premise behind all of these is when I first got here and I read through the contracts, they all read like they were written by 4 different people. And while they were all correct in what they were saying, it seemed a little odd in that they should sound like just the city of Phoenix wrote them. So we worked to make them use the same definitions and the same terms and have the same general flow to them. Now, of course, CMARs have different functionalities than JOCs do, right? It's different than design builds and design bid builds. But in theory, we wanted them to all sound and read the same. So we started with the CMAR one. That was the one where we felt we could have the most impact, being that we do a lot of CMARs, but they're usually big dollar projects. So we wanted to make sure we started there. We've worked with AGC. They are okay with the version that we have now. We wanted to make sure that we weren't surprising them with anything, but that one's been finalized. It's implemented on CMARs going forward. We're not going back in time to change anything, but going forward, the new CMAR template will be used. Similarly, they are reviewing the JOC contract. I already know generally what their comments are going to be because they read the first one and they are remarkably similar. once we get through that one, which should be pretty quick, we are already working internally on the design build and the low bid, the design bid build to follow, right? Once we have the CMAR one done, design build's almost exactly the same. We change a few terms, right? Instead of CMAR, you call it design builder and those types of things. So should be able to get those out pretty quickly. And then all of that, right? Then we'll get back to the professional services, though. Of the 5 of those contracts, these 4 plus that one, the professional services one I thought was in the best shape. So that one probably won't be too much tweaking. We will, of course, incorporate your comments and get with ACEC for your guys' review when we get to that point. Last thing, the city engineer's office, it will be growing, knock on wood. We are going to, as part of the budget hearings, which will be coming up here in the end of May and June, if all goes well, the city engineers group will be adding a long-range transportation planning kind of arm. So with that, we'll be adding 3 different positions. So if, and I know I'm talking to consultants and you are all gainfully employed, but if you or your staff are looking for a change and you want to come work in the city engineer's office, these are the 3 positions that I will be hiring sometime this summer when we get around to it. But really the intent here is to make sure that the city and particularly the streets department is more proactive when it comes to projects and less reactive. So right now, you know, zoning cases and annexations and all of those things come in and we review them as they come in. But up until now, because there's been so many and we've been lacking this group, we haven't been able to have a plan in place that when a project comes in, we're like, yeah, we know about that area and this is the type of things that we're going to want in this area. So we're going to do a little bit more transportation planning. And then if that wasn't enough, coming soon to your city engineer's office, floodplain management and utility coordination and inspection. As many of you may have heard, Ray Dolina recently retired. And with that, he orphaned the floodplain management group. So as we talked a little bit, apparently back before my time, floodplain was within the city engineer's office or was within streets. So the decision was made to bring floodplain back. So probably around that fiscal year again, July 1, we will be reorging a little bit in the city engineer's office and welcoming these 2 groups back or into the group. All right. So again, you've all been very patient. You've kind of suffered through me rambling there for 30 minutes. So now we'll get to the part that you've all been waiting for. And no, you don't need to get your cameras out. We will be providing this presentation to Justin and Amerigo, and they can then send it out to all of you. The CIP this year, $8.5 billion. I'm sorry, that's only up $300 million since last year. But we heard a lot about, and it is the $300 million isn't all pickleball. But I put this in here because if you listened to any of the budget hearings, which I would encourage you all to do, helps give you an idea of what the public is actually wanting. But we heard a lot about pickleball and pickleball courts. So Parks did go back and they changed up some of their CIP projects to incorporate pickleball into either their existing facilities or proposed facilities. But we have a graph here that shows kind of the history of the CIP since 2005. I put this kind of because just it's a fun graph to show how busy the city is and how big our CIP is. But of particular note, and maybe I shouldn't have made that black text on there, but I wanted to point out that it's taken us a couple years, but we're back to what we would have been. That 8.5 billion is what we would have been right before COVID. So if you remember, you know, we were just getting out and getting the CIP ready to go out and do some budgets in 2020, and then COVID hit, and then we all, you know, we came back and we kind of pared that back a little bit, only by $500 million, but we did pare it back a little bit in an effort to kind of tighten our belts a little bit. But now 2 years later, we are back to where we would have been pre-pandemic. So kind of fun little graph there. So some upcoming projects. These weren't necessarily related to some of the bigger departments that I'll talk about. So, the engineering on-call, this is the year coming this year, right? We'll be coming out for those again this summer, replacing the 2-year, the previous 2-year on-call. There's streets, or the environmental group, or streets has one, the environmental NEPA on-call. So out of the city engineer's office, we'll have the on-call for environmental. The materials lab will have one for soils and the on-calls. And then the 100 West building, that one will be coming out here. So that's the Wells Fargo building. That's the one just next door to City Hall. We are basically revamping that, turning it from an old bank branch office building into what will effectively be mostly police headquarters. So in the next, let's call it 6 weeks, maybe month to 2 months, we're kind of working out the details. We will be putting out the A&E for that. There'll be a CMAR and an owner's rep. So 3 of them associated with that. And of course, there will be pre-submittal meetings, and we're going to set up tours and all of that if you are interested in going through. I won't go through all of these. This will be when we send the proposal out, or when we send out the presentation. You will have all of these, but of course, water and wastewater has projects. I tried to put some dates there. Very typical type stuff, right? The steel tank program, renewing that one, small diameter rehab, kind of a lot of that type of work. Street transportation. I wanted to put this one on here in particular because the last few years, right, streets hasn't been as heavy with design projects, mostly and almost exclusively because of the accelerated pavement maintenance program. While we are in year 3 of that, of the 5-year program. So now it's time to start designing some stuff, or getting some stuff designed, so that when year 4 and 5 start to fall off of the maintenance, right, we're out building new things, right? So, and we have the funding to be able to go out and build new things. So here's a list. Again, no need to quickly write those down. They will be made available to you, but there is some time on those. So nothing urgent. The sooner ones were that 100 West building. And then there is one here on the aviation department coming up. And then next week, maybe the week after that, the construction inspection on-call services for the airport will be out. And then they have a few other projects here, design projects coming out either this summer or fall winter time. If you aren't so much into water, streets, and aviation, of course, parks. Again, back to the pickleball thing a little bit. Here are 5 different projects that will be going under design. Probably, the timing on these is a little less clear, but these are kind of their next 5 priority parks, and you can see the locations here. Decent sized parks, right? 10 to 14 acre parks. So pretty good sized parks. I would brush up on your pickleball design requirements and sizes and all of those types of things, right? Because again, that's something that the public is very interested in, and when the public is interested, mayor and council get interested. So with that, we are to the question slide, and before we open up for questions for you or from you, I have one question for you. One thing that I had asked ACEC to do was to help me with a annual salary survey, because we have guidelines, and I'm sure you've all run into this, where you submit your hourly rates for your PMs or your senior designers or whatever, and the guidelines we have are they're outdated, they're a little bit old, so sometimes we may push back on that because they're not part of our adopted guidelines. So we reached out, and I thought, well, who better to tell us what the current going rates are than the people who give us the rates. So we reached out, and I know that Justin and Amerigo are working on this for us. This is my plug to help them, that when you get this information, don't blow it off. It is helpful to me, but just know that they will not be sharing your particular information, right? I won't know individually who submitted what. It's more kind of, I'm looking for the aggregate or the ranges type of a thing, so we can update that and hopefully make that a little bit easier when we get into the negotiations. So with that, 36 minutes straight of me just talking, I will stop sharing now and see if there are any questions.
And now I may have Justin given a salary survey update in a little bit. I don't know if it's my connection better now.
No.
That's okay, Chuck. I can. I'm gonna take it.
Yeah, why don't you take over, because
Okay, Chuck.
my throat hurts anyway. So.
Okay, I can certainly do that. Sure. So I think what I heard in there was an update on the salary survey. I actually am anticipating having that back to me early this week. So we are right around the corner from having that information. So that would be your salary survey update. And then we will be continuing to do this on an annual basis. I know you guys were accustomed to having it for a while, and then COVID happened, and then there was some other internal politics happening with ACEC, and now that's all resolved. So you can look forward to the one coming up very soon, and then again, also annually, of course. So that should do it for the salary survey update. In terms of questions for Eric, because unfortunately Chuck's audio isn't that great, I don't see anything in the chat box at this very moment. However, if you do have a question for Eric, please feel free to unmute yourself, turn on your camera if you're comfortable, and we'll go ahead and go. I see a hand raised. Chris, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, Eric, I definitely heard your pickleball, but on the transportation side, what do you feel that the mayor and council is leaning towards? Because it seemed there's a lot of fiber optic projects in the transportation side, which some of us might not feel are normal types of transportation projects.
Yeah, so no, good question, Chris. So being that, there is $8.5 billion worth of projects, there are going to be those kind of random projects that may not feel like transportation. You kind of talk about fiber projects, but the fiber project support, right, our signals and communications and those types of things. So it seems as though those are, and because they are within the right of way, those seem like logical places for those projects to be. Really, the right now, the focus with the streets department and then from mayor and council is very much about pedestrian safety. So it's about, Hawks and the road safety action plan and Vision Zero, and coming up with those types of projects. Now there isn't a lot of desire right now, because it's all going to be development based, right, to add new roadways, right, or to build new roadways, because we, as you all know, new roadways get built with new development. But so really a lot of it is going to be going back and, as you mentioned, Chris, some of the fiber projects that maybe the fiber just has never been in those corridors or needs to be upgraded. Sometimes the fiber is necessary for Hawks. So it's all interrelated a little bit. But then it's going to go back to kind of maintenance, right? And not pavement maintenance, because we've just done that. Now we aren't done with that, but we've put a big dent into that. But it may be going back and looking at, okay, now let's do, we haven't upgraded this road, pick a roadway, right? We haven't done that. We haven't done anything this from a cross-section standpoint in 15, 20 years, right? So maybe it's adding bike lanes or doing, we don't call them road diets, right? We'll call them road reconfigurations, right? Where maybe there's a way to drop a lane, or, you take out a center turn lane so you can put in some bike lanes or something, right? So it's that type of work that mayor and council, but then that all relates back to pedestrian safety and Vision Zero, right? They're all kind of interrelated there a little bit, but good question.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yep. All right, Bill, you got your hand up.
Eric, thanks for the presentation today. I did have one kind of, maybe it's a tangential question on the airport side. Do you know if there's still ongoing negotiations with UP with regards to the trench project?
Yeah, so no, good question. And I probably get asked about the trench project once every 6 weeks or so, right? It's a big project. Everybody's kind of excited about it. I'm excited about it. Not often do you get 3 federal agencies all involved, right? With the FAA, the FTA, and FHWA all at one time, right? So, but the discussions with the UP have stalled a little bit. They aren't quite as eager to put their train underground as maybe they were in the past. And I don't know if it's just a function of like their leadership has maybe changed a little bit. But I do know that with the switch from Jim to Chad, I do know that the airport's focus has changed some in that, Jim had been around and was very comfortable with kind of the internal operations of the airport, right? The terminal work and that kind of stuff. So he was very comfortable with that. So he was venturing out into kind of the bigger projects, the trench project and those types of things. Well, then when he retired and Chad came, Chad wanted to pause that a little bit and familiarize himself to the level that Jim was, right? And the comfort level that Jim had with the terminal work. So Chad is focusing a little bit more right now on his customers, which are the airlines, and making sure that their terminal needs are addressed, and that then are, then on the terminal side, and then making sure that the aprons and runways and all of those types of things are good. So I do think that from the camp, the master plan, the UP project is it's not dead. It's still necessary, but it's on hold for now, where Chad has changed his approach a little bit and changed the focus that he has, which will then allow us to continue negotiations with the UP. We did have the build grant there for the 24th Street. We're talking with FAA, who was the original sponsor of that, about potentially transitioning that to FHWA and maybe allowing streets to just do the grade separation part of it, not the rest of everything else that was part of that, right? But just the grade separation of 24th Street and Air Lane. So we'll see. We're having some conversations with them. There are some scheduled challenges to that, right? They would have to extend the deadline. The federal government would have to extend the encumbrance deadline. So I don't know if they're going to be willing to do that or not. So we will see on that. But at the end, of course, if that does come to fruition, that will be one of those, hey, surprise, we're coming out with the 24th, because it'll be super fast, right? But I didn't put it on the list because it is very gray at this point whether that project will even happen. But if it does, it'll be interesting project, right? Grade separation. There's information out there. You could get the build grant that we had submitted however long ago when we were awarded that $24 million. Most of that information will not have changed, except that the project would then be focused on just the grade separation and not everything else that was related to it on the airport side.
Appreciate it, Eric.
Yep.
I think we all understand negotiations with UP is a challenge all by itself. Thanks again.
It's challenging. Yep, no problem.
Thanks, guys. Okay, so Chuck Christensen is now chatting with us, so I'll go ahead and read his question from the chat. It says, Eric, when do you anticipate ACEC's input on the contract? Will it be ready for the November PPD meeting?
Probably not. So if I had to guess, right, we would probably use the rest of this calendar year to finish out the construction contracts. The design, build, and low bid were the ones that we haven't really worked with AGC on. It would probably be, next calendar year that we would be soliciting for your input on those. So, maybe if we had to put a date on it, right, maybe it's something that we start the beginning of next calendar year, and maybe we talk about how great it was that we finalized it by this time next year at the CIP. Maybe it'll be one of my CIP extravaganza updates. That one, I mean, I get your, and I'm glad that you guys want to help on that one. As I mentioned before, that was the one that I was least concerned with. as far as some of the terms and conditions that were in there. So I thought that one was in the best place. So that's the one that we're kind of holding for last. But good question, Chuck.
Thanks, Eric. Anyone else have questions for Eric?
Okay.
Wow, Eric, it looks like you were that thorough.
I guess so.
Well, if there are no further questions, then I will give everybody their day back. So really quickly from ACEC Arizona, broadcasting from ACEC Minnesota. Don't forget that our conference, the ACEC Arizona 71st Annual Conference on Roads and Streets, is happening. And those dates are September 20th, 29th, and 30th of 2022. Same bat time, same bat channel. We're back at El Conquistador. So I hope you guys all enjoyed that last year. And for those who weren't able to join us last year, I hope you'll be joining us this year. Registration is open, sponsorship sales are open, and booth sales are open. So please be sure to get in early so that you get your perfect space, hotel rooms, and all that other fun stuff. So I think that will do it for me. I've seen many thank yous in the chat, Eric. This is obviously very, very, very much appreciated. And, I hope that we will continue our extravaganza theme for your CIP update. All right, everybody. Thank you again for being here. It was really great to see either your name or your smiling faces. And until next time, have a great week. And we'll see you back at the ACEC Arizona offices soon. Take care, everybody.